Welcome to the 2 Cent Report interviews, and today we is actually just me because Tristan is not joining us today. So, hello, this is Justin, aka LC Lupus, and today I spoke to Gideon Griebenow, the one-man team behind the upcoming colony builder World Turtles. We spoke about his game, his experience with transitioning from a traditional job to full-time game development, and, of course, Terry Pratchett. Hope you enjoy our conversation. So I think we can just jump straight into it then. And tell me a bit about yourself. Who are you?
Okay, so I'm Gideon Griebenow. I'm from South Africa, and I'm actually 43 years old already. So I started with Unity when I was 40. So it's kind of like the nerdiest midlife crisis that I'm aware of. I just one day saw a video on YouTube about this game development engine, and I was amazed that something like that was just available for anyone to play around with, basically, and just try stuff out. And so I started learning, and the more I learned, the more I realized that I could actually make something decent with this. I could make a game. So I kind of tailored everything that I learned towards this idea that I already had. So I tried to learn the things that I would require if I were to make this game. And as I learned them, I kept adding them into this project of mine. It just kept growing and growing. And then one day I saw Cat Like Coding's brilliant hex map tutorial, and I was about halfway through that, and I just skimmed through the rest because I was so excited. And then I just realized that this was the basis to start off from. With this basis, I could actually put all of my ideas into this, expand on it, make it fit the extra stuff that I needed it to fit. And of course, there was a lot of work still to be done, but the basis was a really good base. I could see from I haven't done C# before, but I had 20 years of coding experience, so I could see from the code and the way that it was done and written and so on that this was a quality tutorial to start off from. And so I just kept going, and before long I actually was at the point where I could make a demo, and it just grew from there. And I'm currently at the point where I think I could, hopefully, if everything goes well, do this instead of the career that I have been doing up until now.
Yeah, no, I think that's usually the plan. Ultimately, doing something that's not just the career, but actually something you enjoy doing. So, the original sort of list of questions that I had back when I first started out was saying, what games do you play? But then I was informed by my co-host, who isn't here today because load shedding is great,
Yeah.
but that not all people who make games actually play games. So firstly, do you play games?
I used to. It's probably the better answer. Um, I was probably about 12 or 13 when I first got introduced to a computer back in the day. And it wasn't long before my brother and I remember how we took turns during the holidays to sleep and play Civilization. So when the one slept, the other one played, and we made turns like that for days on end. So Civilization has always been a favorite. I also remember how it felt to be learning all those things, because I was 13 years old, and you suddenly started playing this game where you touched on so many aspects of our world and our humanity, basically. And I don't think, I wonder if my mind has ever been exposed to so many ideas in such a short time since then. I probably have to say, when I started reading Terry Pratchett, that was also another event like that, where it was just a whole load of ideas in a very short time, introduced to your brain, and that you kept thinking about the whole time. And then I remember playing Monkey Island, and I quite enjoyed that, The Secret of Monkey Island. And then I also liked Settlers a lot. I still remember how when playing that, I kept thinking about how it would be programmed, because I was just starting university then, and I had computer science classes. So I kept thinking that the stuff that I learned, how it would fit into the programming of Settlers 2. So it's probably a big reason for the direction I'm taking with World Turtles, because it's heavily inspired by the way Settlers 2 plays. And then, since then, the last few games that I've really played seriously was Civilization 6 and StarCraft 2, but nothing really seriously since then.
Yeah.
So I'm not. I don't think I'm a gamer anymore, but I used to be.
Yeah, no. That I was going to say firstly that I assume from World Turtles, definitely some Terry Pratchett influence there. I assumed.
Yeah, slight influence.
Yeah. And yeah, I was curious if you basically played games like the ones you are now making, or if it was just, you'll get people who will play FPSs but they make RTSs. People
Yeah,
can
I never really liked FPSs. I played it a bit, but it's not really the kind of game I like. I like more the building up the base and progressing and researching and so on. So naturally, I guess that's the kind of game I would make, because you have to be motivated for what you're making, and I can't see myself making something like a first person shooter. It just wouldn't motivate me that much.
No, definitely. I think I was kind of caught immediately, pretty much because of the general vibe. It felt very Settlers-y. I haven't played Settlers in years, but that vibe, and also of course just the World Turtle aspect, which I think was something I really liked as soon as I saw it, pretty much. So yeah. Now the next question, kind of, I think you sort of answered it to a degree, is how long have you actually been playing games? But you said about 12, 13 when you first started, and now not so much anymore.
Yeah, it's probably for about 15 years it was reasonable, and then it started waning as university and marriage and 4 kids started taking over the time.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So the last 5 years or so, really almost nothing.
Yeah. No, but that's how it goes. Life gets in the way, and it said you wanted to make a game rather than just playing them.
Yeah, at the moment I would rather make one than play one.
Yeah. So what I know you did say about sort of seeing things online and everything, and then being influenced and inspired to actually make a game. But when did that sort of start? When did you decide that you actually wanted to make games? Because I think you work in this sort of programming field, I think, judging by what you said.
Yeah, so I work in a actually credit risk management environment. So there is programming involved, and it's about statistical algorithms and so on. But it's more about the analysis of the results than the programming. Of course, you do need the programming, and I did a lot of it. But I think what it of course it teaches you how to code and good practices, and how to write code that depends on other methods and call them in the right way and use the memory, and what happens behind the scenes, what is data intensive or resource intensive, and what works better than others. So when I first saw the videos, I had no C# or Unity experience, but I was able to progress quite quickly because I knew how to think like a programmer. So I'm lucky that I was able to. I think a big thing is being able to find out which tutorials actually teach you in the correct way. You can waste a lot of time with things that are done incorrectly, and I think I was able to weed out the tutorials that are less important or less accurate in terms of teaching you something that you can take further for the rest of your coding career. And so I think between that cat-like coding tutorial and then a bunch of tutorials by someone called Code Monkey on YouTube. Those were probably the two biggest influences where I found things that I knew I could apply in my idea, that I could adapt to fit my circumstances.
No, that's really great. Did you, when you were sort of younger, did you think ever you would want to make games, or did you only
yes.
sort of realize?
No. When I was quite young, I always played around with trying to design a little game here, a board game, a paper-based game, a little computer-based games, Excel-based games, and so on. I've actually, this idea for World Turtles, I coded in Excel about 9 years before starting with Unity, but just as a kind of a text-based game, just buttons and cells with numbers in them, no graphics at all, just the logic behind the scenes. And I've also made a board game probably 15 years ago, and when we did Turbo Pascal in high school, I was doing everything I could to try and turn that into a primitive graphical engine, which taught me a bit about assembly language and so on. But when I went to university, that kind of just made a dead end because I had to spend my time on other stuff.
Yeah.
But I always dreamed of coming back to it one day, and when I saw what Unity was capable of, and I mean, if I saw Unreal Engine first, I would probably have gone with that. But I happened to see a Unity tutorial, and I was just amazed. And I thought, this is the missing link that I never had before. I always didn't know how to get the graphics there. How I could code the back end and so on, but I couldn't get reasonable graphics going. And then that was the final piece of the puzzle, was actually seeing just what you could do with Unity, and it was totally free. And that's when it really started kicking in again.
So you think the only reason you really chose Unity is because you happened to see it first?
Well, I never had a look at anything else. I saw Unity and I just started playing around with it. So that's the one I learned. I didn't choose Unity because I considered 5 different engines and thought which one would be the best for me. It was the one that met me, and it's the one I continued with. So
no, but that's good. It's good to pick something and just stick with it. Sadly, I'm more the media guy. Co-host who would usually be here, he's an animator and he knows Unity and everything. So he would actually be able to speak technical. I can mostly just go, yes, I see. All the technical stuffs. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's fine. So, let's talk about World Turtles then. What was actually because I know there's like the basic, there's the settlers civilization style influence in there, and also some Pratchett in there. But sort of what is the game, and why make this particular one and not something else?
Okay, so that little Excel-based game that I talked about earlier, that was basically a Discworld game. It had Discworld characters and ideas in it, which of course I would never be able to sell. I just played around with it on my own desktop, keeping myself busy every now and then. Like instead of playing an idle clicker game, I would just play my little idle clicker game that I made myself for 5 minutes or so. And I originally started putting some of those ideas into the Unity game idea. Of course, I generalized it because I knew I wouldn't be able to make a Discworld game. It would take a miracle to get that, to get the green light for that.
Oh yeah.
And then, I started just learning. I searched for a turtle asset, and I got quite a nice one with animations and everything. So I bought that for $30, and I started building my little world on top of that. And I think I'm a huge Discworld fan, so making this game on a turtle, which is fair game because the turtle and the world on the turtle is not Terry Pratchett's idea. It's as old as the mountains. So
yes, it's very old.
Terry Pratchett himself got it from the Hindu mythology and so on. So that was quite fair game. I was happy with that. And even though it's not a Discworld game, I kind of feel connected to the Discworld in some way because of this. And I actually sent Rihanna Pratchett a tweet showing when I first had my first trailer ready. I sent it to her and I told her I'm making this game. I just want to make sure that she's okay with it and that I'm not trying to step on any toes or steal any IP or so. And she says it's fine as long as I don't make it Discworldy. If I don't take certain ideas and characters and locations on the Discworld that is Discworld specific, she has no problem with it. So I felt happy and I continued on the setting. And it motivates me to keep going because of just knowing that it's somehow connected to the Discworld series.
That's really cool. Also that you contacted her and it's all fine. I mean, she seemed because I follow her on Twitter and she seems very, very pretty much chill with everything and also preserving father's legacy. So I can understand that quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I totally understand it as well. So that's why I just wanted to make sure that nobody would be worried or angry when they saw it maybe one day. By chance.
No, but I think things being influenced by, well, everyone is influenced by something. You know, once upon a time they were called Doom clones. So
yeah,
eventually everything comes together. So for those who don't know this game, whoever's listening to this, what exactly is World Turtles? What is the game? What do you do?
Okay, so it's basically a colony builder on the turtle. So your world is based on the turtle, and the fact that you are on a turtle flying through space will impact your gameplay. So it's not just a gimmick that you can have a look at, but it's actually something you have to bring into your strategy as well. I didn't specifically want to make a fighting game or battles or armies and so on. Firstly, it's the first game I'm ever working on, so I've got a hell of a lot to learn about everything, and trying to make a decent combat system on top of that would probably kill me. A combat system needs to be good quality or it really ruins the game. And I didn't see myself designing that and implementing that as well on top of all the other things that I need to implement. And I thought I'd take a different route of trying to find peaceful ways or alternative ways to keep the player engaged. So you're gonna build a huge catapult, but you're not going to use it to fight. You're going to use it to fling large balls of food into space so you can feed your turtle and keep it alive. Also, using that to steer the turtle, so shooting it a bit to the left or a bit to the right, you'll be able to steer your turtle in space and get it away from certain areas in space and towards other areas that you need to go to. So I'm trying to bring the setting into the game so that it's not just a little gimmick that you see for 2 minutes and then it's over. You actually have to play your game with the turtle and the turtle's health and its survival and your own survival always being in front, the thing you need to focus on. So that's the big aim is about the turtle in space, and the little aims are about getting resources up and enough people to assist you and working with the AI realms around you, so that eventually you can get to these big tasks that you need to do together. Yeah. So you're going to have AI players around you, but you're not going to fight against them or play against them. Your job is actually going to be to make sure everyone does well enough so that in the end you can work together to perform or to meet huge tasks, huge projects.
It's actually great because I mean most games are focused around combat. Like it's a big thing. Games tend to be ultimately about violence. So seeing something that's very specifically not is great. Are there sort of like big things that can happen that can be, say catastrophic to your people, or so like are you fighting the elements kind of thing, or always peaceful?
At the moment, there are no catastrophic things yet, but they will need to be. I mean, fine, you can just build a little colony and spend an hour or two doing that and go away. But I think there needs to be some stress, some conflict in the game, to give it that extra edge. Otherwise, it's just really almost like an idle game where you just plop a few things down. That's it. So there needs to be some hazards, but they will most likely be environmental, from space, maybe from beneath the ground itself, and so on. For example, I already have like fault lines on the terrain, and they erupt from time to time. And when they erupt, they raise the terrain up in real time while you're playing, and rocks get thrown around and so on, and then new rivers can also form in real time on the map that you're playing. So one idea I have is that the player needs to prepare for this. When there's a fault line, they need to prepare the ground around it, for example, to lead the rivers into certain directions so that it doesn't mess up the stuff that they've already built.
And is that all kind of procedurally generated? So there's not a structure to it. It can just happen.
Yes. A lot of the game is procedurally generated, from the maps down to where you start to where the fault lines are. Basically everything is procedurally generated. So every time you play a map, it will be different. And how large all of the areas are, they fall within certain parameters. And hopefully, I've already done a bit of a map, call it a map creator, where you can set some of those parameters and it changes the structure of your map. I want to expand on that a lot more, so that you can get smaller islands further apart, maybe larger land masses with many rivers or whatever. So you can set those parameters and your map will look a certain way. And I think that also makes the gameplay different. You're going to play differently on a map if it differs quite a lot from the previous map you played. Some things will become more important and others less important, and that kind of gives it replayability, that you don't play it through once and you're done.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've never really played the Civilization games before. I just happen to have not. Is there in World Turtles like an end game? Do you finish?
Not at the moment. I still have to. I've got a few ideas rolling around in my head, but for now I'm aiming on getting the player to be able to feed the turtle and steer it around in space. And once that is possible, you can bring in a lot more things that happens in space itself. So currently all the players really on the map, but with the aim of getting to space. And I mean, there could be like expeditions that you need to do to certain parts of space to get maybe different minerals or resources and so on. But I'm really not at that stage yet. I'm trying to just build the early game up,
yes,
and improve the quality of that, because I think making the game wide at the moment. if I want to include everything in it at the moment, it's going to be too long, too much work to get it all in, and the player is going to see the first 5 or 10 minutes, and that's where you need to hook him. So I'd rather spend more time now improving the quality of that first hour that you're going to play, and get people to support me or be positive about the game in that hour, so that they know that whatever I'm going to add onto it will be of the same quality. So if I try to do too much now and skimp on the quality, then I'm probably going to lose a lot of potential support.
Yes, no, I get that. Are you planning on, judging by the Steam page, are you first releasing early access?
Yes, at the moment, I have no choice really. I stopped the last 5 or 6 years. I've had my own one-man consultancy business, so I did projects at different clients, and I got paid by the hour for that. And since November of last year, I actually didn't take on. I hadn't taken on new projects, so I've decided I'm going to invest in World Turtles. I'm going to spend all my time building this game from November, and I've set aside a certain amount of money to burn on this and see how far I can take it and whether it can actually fly. And that is going to run down in a few months. So I need to set a date of September to get the early access out so that I can get some income to keep going. Hopefully by that time there's enough people interested in it that I can make enough through early access sales to keep me going for another year or so.
No, I think that's a great idea. Also very, very interesting, basically completely then self-funded little studio, basically. Do you consider, because it's obviously a one-man studio, but still.
It's almost like an accidental one-man studio. I never planned for this when I started off, but as the game kept growing and the wish list kept growing, it started becoming more and more a reality. And so when I took that leap in November, it was not just because I thought, oh, I'm going to make a game and I'm going to become rich. It was already 2 years in the making, and wishlist has been picking up and so on. So I thought I'd make I'd take an educated risk on this, because if I don't, I'm probably gonna hate myself for the rest of my life for not at least giving it a go for a year or so.
Yeah, no, I think giving it a go is the best idea. And from what I remember seeing something somewhere that, because I think you also have like a channel, I think, on YouTube.
Yes, I do.
For sort of educational stuff. Is World Turtles, is it also going for an educational vibe or not so much?
Yeah, I think it's the first off, the channel, I just started it when I started learning Unity. I wanted to make some projects that while learning Unity I could also kind of visualize some mathematical and scientific ideas, and that also kind of motivated me to learn how to use Unity to show these things visually, so that I can learn how to do it for use in the game later on. So I started making videos about mathematical concepts that I've always kind of understood visually. When I was at school, people kept asking me, how does this work and how do you figure this out? And I always just had this kind of visual understanding of the things, and I just wanted to kind of convey that to whoever wants to look at them. And that was basically a way to learn even more, and eventually the channel just became World Turtle stuff and development stuff. So the more I learned enough of the how to use Unity, the more I just moved over to the game itself. But yes, the game, I think, I don't think it's educational, but at least I'd be happy if people playing it just thought a little bit about the mechanics that goes into it. Like a stupid thing, your woodcutter can cut off trees, but it can also plant trees again. And if you want to plant trees, you have to take them off cutting trees. So you're giving some of your productivity away, but there's a larger goal of staying alive for longer on the planet that maybe you can think about and just take it further than this stupid little game is taking it, but kind of let people think about caring for the planet they live on, maybe, and that it's not about cutting down what you can and getting all the resources you can as quickly as you can and just leaving behind a wasteland. It's about also keeping in mind that you have a bigger goal of saving the place that you live on. Also, what I found really interesting is when I researched a bit about what research items I should include for all of the buildings. Well, let me first say that all of the building types have their own little research trees. So your builders are going to research stuff that has to do with building. Your farmers are going to research farming stuff. Your stone cutters are going to research stone cutting things. So and all of the builders work together on that little research tree for the builders. And I had to decide which items are going to go into those research trees. So I had to kind of read up on how stuff was done in the old days, how people worked before they had machinery, and it's actually it's been very interesting to figure out how those things, those what do you call them, tools of that time actually worked, using non-mechanical or non-machinery ways of doing what today seems like we can just do it with a huge machine and don't worry about how exactly it gets done. But how smart those things needed to be designed to get the stuff done that they needed to get done on such a huge scale without having modern equipment. So maybe people can also just find that interesting if they read the tooltip on these primitive tools, on just thinking about how it actually worked, why it worked when you rotated this shaft, why did it pick up the piece of rock if you inserted this tool into the hole that you drilled into it. And I found that quite interesting, and maybe other nerds would find it interesting as well.
Well, I'm a nerd, so I'm sure I'll find it interesting. Sounds good. Now, the reason I ask about the educational stuff is also because, well, one of my jobs, I'm also a teacher. So, and I like being able to use games as an educational tool because I think they're an underutilized medium for education.
Yes, me too.
So, I've used historical games to teach history and stuff like that. And I think this would be really good for something like environmental development if you're learning anything like that. And also, I just think that the non-violent aspect and the sustainability aspect that you talk about is, well, for that, really, really good. Like actually learning about conservation while playing a game.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 4 kids, and I mean, I'm not one of those people that says if you play a first-person shooter, you're gonna become a violent person and kill people. It's not about that. It's about, personally, I just like building stuff up more than I like shooting stuff down.
Yeah.
It's just, I just enjoy it more, and I would like my kids to play my game eventually one day, and it would be nice to see them enjoying building something up and learning how maybe some old technology worked and how it was adapted through time and upgraded and so on. And just seeing them enjoy that would probably be something that I'd really like, instead of them running around shooting you ever they can see.
No, definitely. No, I think violent games have their place, but I think they're the usual, they're the norm. So something that isn't just violence is actually nice to see. It's actually different. When you spoke about sort of the tools and such that are older, and then you said there's also upgrade trees and everything. Does it move through from sort of Stone Age, Iron Age kinds of times till present, or does it have an older time where it ends?
Yeah, I think it would have a fairly limited scope. It won't be crossing over different ages. I'm just one person, so
Yes.
maybe if enough people buy it, then I can pay 2 or 3 more people to work on it with me full time. Then the art can improve and the range and the scope can increase. But for now, I think I'll just kind of focus on something medieval, let's call it that, in a bit of a fantasy setting, and have a short piece of history, short period of history covered in the game, and just rather have more detail within it than trying to make it too wide. And because if you make it wide, all your art needs to adapt to it as well. And
Yes.
I'm not an artist,
Yes.
and I can't pay an artist to do all of that without the game first proving itself.
Definitely. And actually, speaking of the visuals, you had said that you got them from asset pack.
Yeah, from all over.
Yeah.
Some of them were free. Like some parts, like the windmill, that I've adapted to also serve as a storage area. That was just a free asset that I ran into, and it worked quite well with the rest of the setting. And I asked the person whether I could use it, and he said, "No problem, go ahead, it's yours." Then there was, for most of the houses, I once saw a Reddit post of someone just posted something that says, I'm improving my skills, and this is what I made this weekend. And I actually contacted him, and I asked him if I could buy this this piece of art from him for reuse in my game. And he charged me $50 and made a few different constructions for me with the little building blocks, and that was that. And since then, I've been adding, constructing different looking buildings. They're still the same building blocks, but they look a little bit different, and I've been able to make a few different buildings from them. And then there's the asset pack that I'm now trying to bring in. They look better, but they also a bit more work to get into the hexagon shape that I'm working with. But it's really worth the effort if I can actually make a few different configurations of those as well. And the trees and the stones were all part of that big asset pack. So I got quite a bit from that, plus stuff that I've picked up as I went along, just trying to find something that fits in the whole and doesn't look too out of place, because I'm not able to make it myself.
Yeah. No, I also have no idea how to make anything.
I know how it's done, but I haven't got enough experience to do it quick enough.
Yes. No, definitely understood.
But I do think it helps that I know. I've throughout my life, I've also just tinkered with recording stuff and editing sound and building little models in SketchUp and texturing it and so on. So I know the technicalities of a graphic designer, musician. I taught myself guitar when I was 18. I've now taken up piano lessons at the age of 42. So I know enough about how it works so that I can have the conversation and the workshop with the person that actually does it. And I know what to ask for and what to kind of suggest and so on. And I think that helps a lot as well to be able to pick the thing that would fit into the whole.
Mm. Did you, seeing as we just spoke about things like music or sound in general, did you make sort of any of the music or the sound stuff yourself, or?
I started off with, I was busy with the trees, and I got some free sounds that I started mashing together to make the sound of a tree falling over and crashing down. And I was busy with that when somebody actually saw one of my videos, and he's a professional sound designer, whatever you want to call it. They have a small team, an international team that has won awards in film sound editing and design, and he actually wanted to get some experience in gaming sounds, so he offered to work with me for free in order to just be able to learn how to do it. So that was quite a nice bonus to get someone to handle the we're using Wise. It's another free product that you can use up to, I think, about 250 or 500, I can't remember, different sound files that you can. It's free up until then, so as soon as you want to use more than that, you have to pay some money for that. But he handles everything on the Wise side, and I just import it into Unity and make sure that I call the correct sounds at the correct points in the game. So it's really, and it's a lot better than it would have been if I tried it myself. So
yes.
And sound adds a lot to a game. So
it does.
I'm quite glad that he came across my path and that he's still willing to help me out. It's not that much anymore. At the start it was a lot more, but now it's just like every 3 months I asked him to add maybe 2 or 3 sounds, and he does it in a day or two, and it's back to me, and I put it into the game, and he maybe tweaks it for another day or so. making sure everything fits together with what's already there, the attenuation and the volumes and so on.
That's really, really fortunate that all
Yes,
came
that
together.
is.
But those are the kind of things that happen when you're working on a project. Things just randomly happen that you don't expect.
Yeah. And then there's also a young guy, I think he's 17 or so, that is just learning a lot about video editing and Blender and so on. And he's helped me make the trailer. We sat together for a few days and made the trailer. And I also asked him to edit some of the assets that I have if it's not completely fitting into the situation that I want to use it. He does a few adaptations for me, send it back to me, and I'm able to use that then as well. But I pay him, so but
Yeah.
I mean it's not that much.
No, but it's already fortunate. It all comes together. Are they also local, or are they just?
Yeah, they're also local. The sound guy actually emigrated to the Netherlands now a few months ago, but it doesn't really matter. I've never met him in any case, so it doesn't really matter where we're working from.
No, I mean that's the internet. You have all sorts of colleagues, and you've never met anyone ever.
Yes.
But
And then on the music, I'm using mostly commercial commons with attribution. That I found about three composers whose sound just really works well for me in the game, and I think it. Yeah, many people have said that they like the sound a lot and that it's really nice sound. So I'm quite happy with the music and the sound together in the game. And then I commissioned this one piece, the title song track, that I actually worked with another composer. Paid him again not nearly as much as he's worth, but it's basically like a let's do this one track and see if later on we can do some more at a decent price if it takes off well enough.
yes. No, I think that's the right way to go, because with it's an indie project. You don't have Bethesda money, so
Yes.
can't be.
I mean, I know the skills these people have are a lot more than I can pay them, but luckily they're still willing to work with me.
Yeah.
For the little bit I could give them.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And then also in terms of sort of narrative stuff, I know that there's a world and everything, but is there any kind of an actual story? Seeing as you say mostly procedural, so I wouldn't expect like a full what you would usually think of as a narrative. What would you say?
So there is one, like a tutorial level or tutorial, I call it an episode, that has got a story behind it. That's not procedural because it happens the same way.
Yeah.
So I do have a bit of a story in there, and I've written some paragraphs for just like kind of a backstory to the, for example, if you build a builder's yard, I've actually written something that could just be like a narrative for the builder's yard. I've even had it voice acted, paid someone to do that, but I haven't used it in the game. It needs to come into a place where you actually go look for it instead of having to sit through it necessarily in the game, because it's someone speaking for a minute and a half philosophically about builders, and you don't necessarily want to hear that when you play the game. So maybe there's space for it later on in some kind of a Civilopedia or a World Turtleopedia, where you can, if you go into a larger help file that gives you a lot more information, that maybe that can play in the background or so. So I do have some ideas for that, and I even have some stuff already written and gone through a few iterations, but it's not a whole story and a whole like lore behind it yet.
Yeah. Well, yet do you plan on adding things like that later on?
I don't know. I'll see how it goes. It all really depends on how much time I can spend on it. Does it sell well enough to allow me to pay people to help me out and free up more of my time and get better quality models into the game and so on. So it really depends on, firstly, does it sell well, and secondly, maybe a publisher or investor picks up on the game and decides it's got enough promise to put some skin in the game, give me some money to, say, finish it off in a year. It really depends on what happens. It's the first time I'm going through this process, so I don't know what could happen, or what happens most of the time, or how long it takes, or how much it costs. So I'm just doing what I can with the time that I do have available.
No, you learn as you go, so that's good. I think sort of the last thing about the game itself is sort of the technical stuff, but I think we've kind of gone over technical stuff as we've been talking. Is there a particular sort of reason you maybe stuck with Unity? I know you said you kind of Unity and you just sort of became friends. So
well, I think there's, I mean, at the very high level, the real pros probably will tell you that they can't use Unity because of this, or they don't like Unreal because of this. I'm not even close to that level. If I learned Unreal, it would be able to do everything that I wanted, and if I learned Unity, it's able to do everything that I want, that I need to do with it. So it's the one I learned. It doesn't make sense to me to now switch to something else, and it's almost like having two different buses, and you are the bus driver. Whether you take the one bus or the other bus is not really that important, but your skill as the bus driver is probably what makes it a success or not. If I don't know how to drive any bus, and I try to drive any of the two buses, it's going to be a problem. But if I can drive a bus reasonably well, then any of the two buses will take me where I need to be. So I'm not really worried about should I move to a different game engine or not. It's more than enough for what I need, and I'm happy with that.
No, then that's perfect. So I know at the moment you're sort of looking at a September launch.
Yes, early access launch, unless I mean, I've just talked to someone today that seems interested in the game, and even maybe putting some money into it. If something like that happens and they tell me, listen, we'll pay you, call it a salary, to work on this game for another year, instead of doing early access, then I'll consider that. Because if you finish it up or make it more complete by the time you sell, it's probably more probable that it makes more money than going into early access. So, but if I have to go at it alone, then September is probably it. But if someone else decide they want to come online, it's all about the negotiations there. Do they want me to spend another 6 months on it, giving me some money that I do not have to pay back, or whatever the possible deal is, if something like that happens?
Yes. Okay, so for now, September, and then you'll see how it goes.
It does help that the wish lists have picked up quite a lot the last 2.5 months. It's more than doubled, so
okay, that's
great. It makes the game more viable as a financial concern. So hopefully it keeps going for the next 2 or 3 months, so that the more I have when I eventually launch, of course, then the better it is, and the better the chances are that I can actually keep doing this full time. I would love to. I don't want to stop the game where it is now. I've got a lot of stuff that I still want to add to it, and hopefully there's enough people that also feel that way.
No, well, I mean, I'm liking the look of it, so I definitely want to check it out when it does come to early access, or if not early access, then the later time. So, seeing as first game, and I'm sure right now you're mostly just focusing on actually finishing first game.
Yes, I'm not at my next 2 games yet.
Yes, so no thoughts for what might come next.
Well, I have thought about it a bit. I think the motivation there is that I have spent almost 3 years now, which on the one hand is not that much to learn as much as I've learned up to now, but it's also something that now that you have learned it, you can actually use it a lot faster if you were to build another game. So maybe it's a good idea to, if I can get this game at a reasonable point where I maybe have to spend 70% of my day on it, and try to make a little game that isn't as involved, that maybe takes me 6 months of part-time, and just make a little game with all the functionality that I've learned how to use now, and a more like a not as large scope as World Turtles, but just something small and a scene or two, that's just a little fun to play, and maybe I can get an idea that is unique, or something that may attract some attention, and maybe I can work on that next, either in conjunction with World Turtles. But personally, I would just like to first get World Turtles at a point where it's a lot closer to completion.
Yes, no, definitely. Focus on the now, and then deal with the rest later. And actually, something that I just thought of now, because I know my co-host, if he were here, would be interested in this kind of a thing. Have you shown the game at any events?
Yes, my first event was last year June, which was the Steam Next Fest. I had a very basic demo, and it was really early on in the process, and my game art was first iteration, just what me and a friend could a graphic designer friend could put together from screenshots and so on. So it was really, here's my first iteration of game art, and that went into the next fest, and I actually got 1,200 wish lists from that, even in the state that my game was in. So, and then I didn't take part in any other events. I didn't actually know about these non-Steam events that are quite important and quite good for wish lists if you get into the right ones. I wish I'd known about it a year earlier, but I did not have another event until the 25th of April this year, which was the Earth Appreciation Festival, and I got in by sheer luck. By chance, I was just in the right Discord server at the right time, and someone said, "We've got a few slots open, so send me your game and I'll see if I can get it in." And I got in, and that gave me 2,200 wish lists in 6 days. And then there was this year's Next Fest in June, which also gave me another 2,300 or so wish lists. And then a few smaller initiatives around that added another 1,000 or so. So the events was really only from April this year, and that took me from 4,000 under 4,000 to over 11,000 in 2.5 months. So I wish I'd done more of them. I have since submitted the game to a few more that still needs to tell me whether I've been successful or not. So hopefully one or two of those come through, the right ones, because I've been in some that didn't even give me 50 or 100 wish lists. It all depends on the coverage, mainly the Steam front page coverage. If you can get into an event that has front page coverage, then there's a few thousand wish lists for you. If not, then maybe 100 or 200 or 300, I don't know. But yes, events they are quite important.
Yes.
If you can get into the right ones to get huge boosts in your wish lists in a small period of time.
All right. No, I think then that's kind of everything, unless there's anything else you can think of.
No, I don't think there's anything important that I've missed. I've talked quite a lot.
No, then awesome. I think then that's good. Shall we end off?
Yep, I'm happy.
All right.
Unless you have more questions, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. All right. No, then cool. Then I think we can just say bye-bye to whoever is listening to this. Ta-ta.
Thanks for listening. Bye bye.